Hello tacticians, it's Nox here, and with the holiday season approaching, I thought I'd have a quick look at Vituvius, who is going to be the next legendary released in the legendary event starting on the 24th of December. But first, before we look what he can do in the various arenas, I want to say my thank yous, and today they go to player 3276, Lacoin28, sorry if I murdered your name there, Lord Veterinary, Blue Devil, and Zaku Turner 24. Again, apologies if I've murdered your name. All of you have used my friend code, and it is very much appreciated, as it really does help me keep on top of things. So, thank you very much indeed. So, what about Vituvius? First up is he is mechanic, and this makes a second mechanic in the faction, and this in itself is very unusual. We have not yet seen a faction with two healers or indeed two mechanics. So will the rest of the AdMech also be mechanics? Time will tell. The one thing I will expect is for the rest of the Adeptus Mechanicus to be mechanical. They are well known for thinking that the flesh is weak and only the machine is immortal. So we will definitely see this reoccurring throughout the rest of the faction. His active is Rad Bombardment, and I'm looking at this at level 26 because I like looking at these from a PvP perspective. Now, bear in mind, this is the legendary level, and we will see the actual numbers a bit later when I go into the sandbox to experiment with the PvP rule set. So it will deal toxic damage, which has a 70% pierce ratio and a 25% chance to apply the contaminated debuff to the target hex. And what this contaminated debuff does, they have a minus 30% armor for 1 round, although mechanical and contagions of Nurgle units are not affected. And the length of this line starts at 2 hexes and increases by 1 hex for each round that has passed, and by 1 hex each time a friendly mechanic restores health of a unit. So this can go the entire length of the battlefield very quickly indeed. Now remember, we've seen with the previous AdMech character that he can heal even when a character is on full health, so these two will work very well together. His passive is Master Annihilator, so after Vituvius deals damage to an enemy, the next 2 attacks of any friendly unit against that enemy score an additional hit. And this hit can only deal a maximum amount of damage based on the level of this skill. So if you really want to put this in perspective, think of this guy as the Eldrian for single target hitters. Shosil is certainly going to be looking to this guy to be his bestie. So let's have a look at the PvP side. As always, I like to kick these things off seeing if they can withstand an Overwatch shot from Calendis. And there was a crit there, and Vituvius has a decent amount of health left. Now, if you're thinking about taking this person into the TA, you'd have other characters such as Aleph Null to counter the Celestine, and so you'd have other ways of healing him back up. So Calendis has had a pot shot, it's time for Vituvius to return the favour. And a decent amount back, considering this guy is more of a support unit because of the abilities that he has, rather than a direct damage dealer. And because of that shot, you will see the Master Annihilator in effect, where the next attacks against this unit score an additional hit to a maximum amount of that much damage. So whilst this is going to be great for single target shooters such as Calendis and Shosil, if you pair him with other mechanical units, say Aleph Null or Ray Vass, then you'll need to make sure you try and make the most of those hits before you use those multi-hit attackers, because obviously their amount of damage that they do is going to be less than the single shot users such as Calendis. Moving on to Celestine. What does this benefit of the extra attack, which we can now see on Celestine, have when you consider the Gemini Superior that she summons? So if we have Calendis take a shot, we'll get the extra hit, and both have died because that damage is redirected. But this is a really strong addition to counter Celestine. All too often you are left with Celestine going, well, I'm going to ignore all your hits because they go on to those Gemini Superior. By using a combination like this, you can use Calendis and Vituvius to get rid of both in one shot. I guess two if you include Vituvius's. but that leaves her open for other attacks, say by Show Sill or anyone else, which would then kill her off. This is quite a deal when it comes to the TA. I'm not saying it's going to be the be-all and end-all to see the end of Celestine, but it's certainly going to help those who don't have her. Now, looking at his active, you'll see the length of line is 2 if launched in the first turn. So we're going to move all the way forward and obviously move Aleph Null forward too. Skipping to the opponent's turn, we're going to move down with Calendis to take a shot. Now, the reason for this is I want to see what happens to the bombardment, which currently is a line of 3, when Aleph Null just moves and doesn't actually repair. So just by moving here, you'll see that there is a repair that takes place, and indeed it goes up to 4, and then if you then repair with Aleph Null, you'll see the bombardment go up to a range of 5. So this range can really ramp up when you've got someone like Aleph Null in the team to help, just by moving next to a damaged mechanical unit. So if we move him across and just see what this rad bombardment is like. Now we choose a direction it goes in, so we can either send it over Calendis here, or as I would like to do in a PvP environment, maybe not with this setup, is send it over one or more objectives which you capture. The reason for this is if you look at contamination, any units standing or starting on a contaminated hex have minus 30% armor for 1 round. And this is something that the enemy will need to watch out for. If there is a contaminated hex, which is also a hex they want to capture, all of a sudden they're going to have minus 30% armor, and they're going to be very easy to kill. So let's send it across there. And isn't that a cool looking animation, which I don't think anyone will miss? It reminds me a bit of Azrael's Dark Talon Strike. And if we move both Celestine and Rayvas into it, you'll see Rayvas is not affected because of course he is mechanical, and you will see here Celestine has the contamination effect as well as the debuff, which is the contaminated effect in action. So even when they move away, they'll have this debuff shown, so you can see it in effect very clearly. So now we've considered PvP, what about PvE and the guild raids? Well, of course, when we talk about guild raids, we always immediately think of Eldrian. His Doom maximum level will add on about 900 extra damage, or closer to 1200 extra damage if you're using Morgan Ra. However, Vituvius will add on nearly 7,500 damage for the next 3 attacks. This means that if you take in single target attackers with Vituvius, you are in more or less the same range as Eldrian. So this opens up a brand new way of dealing with those rather pesky guild raid bosses. Of course, with Vituvius, you're going to be wanting to take in people like Show Sill, Calendis, and Sarquel, all big one-hit damage dealers. And with Eldrian, you'll be preferring to bring in the likes of Rayvas and Morgan Ra. So we now have these 2 different ways of dealing huge amounts of damage to the guild raid bosses, and I can't wait to see some of the madness that we may come up with if we try and combine the 2 together. What about Vituvius, Eldrian? Then you can throw in Show Sill, Morgan Ra, Rayvas. Well, that would be a team. Would that be good, as long as you make sure everyone attacks in the right order? I personally think this character has great promise for both PvP and PvE, and I cannot wait for the legendary event to start so I can get my mitts on him and get him ready for that first tournament arena. In keeping with the spirit of the season, Snowprint have given me a bunch of Requisition Scrolls to give away, and the best bit about it is you don't know what you're getting, just like a real Christmas gift. You'll have to open them up and see what you get. And I suppose if you've been really good, you might even find a legendary in there. First place will get 10, and second and third will get 5 scrolls each. All that you need to do is make sure you're subscribed and let me know in the comments below what team you would use with Vituvius. And that's all there is to it. I'll be announcing the winners next Monday, so get those entries in quick, because it'll just be in time for Christmas. If you like my videos, it'd be very much appreciated if you would consider using my friend code, as it really does help me out. Or if you or your guild are looking for a new home, please feel free to reach out to any of the guilds shown. As always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the battlefield.